Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I would just like to make a few announcements. First, I want to thank Appalachian Power for sponsoring this Future Forward session for the national and statewide candidates, Meet the Candidates. And I'd also like to give a reminder that early voting begins on May 1st through May 11th. And the primary is May 14th, and the last day to register to vote is April 23rd. And at this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Jay Quesenberry, who is our Raleigh County Administrator.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We had a really enjoyable time yesterday for Meet the Candidates. We did this yesterday with local candidates, and today we're going to be reading statewide candidates and candidates for State Senate and House of Delegates. In today's format, we'll call two or more candidates to the respective podiums and ask the candidates, except judge candidates and those running opposed, to answer questions, depending on the office, and then the candidates will be given a 1-minute chance to answer. Also, all candidates will have a 1-minute closing statement, and the judges will be given a 1-minute opportunity to do a statement as well. We'll also have a 30-second introduction statement as well. So we'll allow you to do that today, just a little bit different. So we want to introduce our folks that are making this happen, including our Sergeant of Arms, and they've done this for many, many years, Roy Shrewsbury and Nancy Kissinger of the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce. If you all would stand up. They've done this umpteen years. I'm afraid to say how many years they've actually done it, but we greatly appreciate their support of this event over the years. And our timekeeper, the cowbell man, Pete Tirico. When you hear that sound, it means your time is up. So you want to be aware of that, and Pete is our timekeeper, and he's also done that for many, many years. We've had the same people doing this for a long time, so it's been an enjoyable process. And we usually do it about every 2 years through the election cycle. Now we want to introduce our distinguished media panel, and we've asked these folks from the media to ask the questions, and we appreciate them taking their time out to be with us. And we're going to start over on this side today, on the left, with first off, Lola Reiser from WWNR and Southern Communications. Next up, we have Ben Schwartz of WVVA. Next to Ben is Rivers Upchurch of 59 News, WVNS TV. And over to this table, we have Micah Leith with WOAY TV. Next to Micah is Cameron Gano of the Lute Press, Keith Thompson with WJLS, and over on the end there is Damon Kane, editor of the Register Herald. Welcome, distinguished media panel. They put a lot of thought into these questions and asked some thought-probing questions, and we greatly appreciate that. Well, the first thing we want to do is move to the U.S. Senate race. And we'll ask our U.S. Senate candidates to come on up to the stage. And we have several U.S. Senate candidates here. Some are not able to attend. I'm going to list the candidates here, and then we'll get into our forum here. Brian Byrd, who's running for U.S. Senate as a Republican. He's not here. Don Blankenship, Democrat, running for U.S. Senate. He is not able to attend today. Glenn Elliott, I believe, is here. Jim Justice, also Republican, running for U.S. Senate, is not able to be with us today. Zane Lawhorn, Republican, he is here with us today. Don Lindsay, not able to attend today. He's a Republican running for the race. Brian McKinney, also Republican running for this race, not able to attend today. Janet McNutley, who is a Republican, not able to attend today. Mr. Alexander Mooney, who's running for the race, he's with us today. And Zachary Shrewsbury, Democrat running for this race, who is not able to be with us today. So we want to say welcome to all of our candidates. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. And we want to begin with Mr. Elliott. Mr. Elliott, if you'll come to a podium. And we're going to give you 30 seconds to do an opening statement, and then we'll have some questions for you.
All right, thank you, Jay. My name is Glenn Elliott. I've been mayor of the city of Wheeling for going on 8 years now. Born and raised in West Virginia. I started out my career working 5 years in the U.S. Senate for Senator Byrd back in the 1990s. Moved back home to West Virginia about 15 years ago and ran for mayor, and have really enjoyed bringing Wheeling back into the conversation of up-and-coming West Virginia cities, and look forward to taking that message on to the U.S. Senate. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Elliott, our first question comes from Lola Reiser of WWNR.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We know that educating our workforce in the transition of industry here in West Virginia is high priority on many campaign candidates. How would you approach a re-education of our workforce here in the southern coal fields?
Yeah, a great question. It's a question that comes up across the state. Obviously, we have a lot of workers trained in several industries that are facing some pressures. We want to do what we can to protect the industries that we have, but we have to get workers trained for the new opportunities out there. A lot of folks haven't, skills, whether it be in electricity or whatever. There's a lot of opportunities in terms of trade schools, worker retraining programs, to get people, the tools that they need. We need to invest in our workforce first and foremost. And if we don't do that, it's asking a lot to expect outside industries to come in if we don't have that trained workforce. It also starts, for folks just starting out. We send a lot of folks away to four-year schools when here in West Virginia, in reality, there's a lot of opportunities for folks with a two-year technical degree where you can really excel. I know firsthand in Wheeling, there are jobs available for folks with a two-year trade school degree paying more than jobs folks with a four-year degree in some situations. We need to get folks into the right types of schooling. We need to make sure that, when they start out, they're not starting out with a load of student debt. That's something we have to look at, making sure the costs are subsidized in some respect, so kids are not starting out with these massive debts. We look back at the 1950s and 1960s, one thing we did was a GI Bill. We educated a whole workforce. We need to look at ways to do that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. We have another question for you from Ben Schwartz of WVVA.
Thank you. Sir, the Senate seat you're seeking has a history of being held by well-known national figures like Robert Byrd and Senator Joe Manchin. Do you believe a high profile like that hurts or helps the senator's ability to serve West Virginians?
A great question. I would argue that this particular Senate seat has probably had the most outsized representation of any Senate seat in the country going back to the 1960s, if you look at the respective careers of Senators Byrd and Senator Manchin. They have showed that if you get into the Senate, if you get on the right committees, if you get some seniority, you can make yourself very, very relevant and deliver. Driving down here from Wheeling, I drive on a lot of highways named after different senators over the years. You see a lot of investment, just in recent years, because of the position Senator Manchin has had being that key vote, we've been able to bring a lot of investments back here through the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. A lot of cities have benefited from the American Rescue Plan. Those would not have happened without Senator Manchin. So clearly this is an important seat, a very significant seat, and I think it's one that West Virginians really need to think about. The way you get power in the Senate is you get there and you earn some seniority, you get on the right committees. You can't do it. It's very hard to be a freshman senator to make a big difference. It takes some time. I worked there for 5 years, saw the way Senator Byrd went about the job, and would certainly bring the same energy to it if given the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. If you'll hang on the stage, we'll call you back for a 60-second, a 1-minute closing statement. Thank you very much. We next want to move to Zane Lawhorn. Mr. Lawhorn, if you'll come to the stage, or to the podium, I should say. You're already on the stage. And give us a 30-second opening statement.
My name is Dr. Zane Lawhorn. I've been an optometric physician here in southern West Virginia. I have an office here in Beckley as well as Princeton. I'm one of the other candidates that you never hear about because I'm not spending money like crazy. The media seems to ignore me like they do the other candidates. But I want you to know that I'm running to represent you in Senate and to save you money.
Okay, your first question for Mr. Lawhorn, Dr. Lawhorn, is coming from Rivers Upchurch, 59 News.
You represent the southern part of the state in this race to a lot of people. How can you make sure that this region in particular is made a priority if you are elected to the U.S. Senate?
Well, if you elect me as your senator, I will be a representative of all the people in West Virginia. But of course, I'm from southern West Virginia. I understand the issues that face southern West Virginians a lot more than what I do from the people up north, but I'll learn that as well. You know, in our area, we've got really two big issues that have to be addressed. That's job creation, good job creation, and the drug epidemic that hurts us so much. You know, businesses in this area can't hire good workers because of the drug test. Our people are too dependent on drugs, so we've got to address the drug issue, number one, and then we've got to work on creating those opportunities for people to have good paying jobs. You know, I serve as the chairman of the building commission for the city of Princeton. We just did a deal that is going to bring 100 good paying jobs to the city of Princeton. Those are the kinds of actions that we need in southern West Virginia.
The next question for Dr. Lawhorn comes from Micah Leith of WOAY-TV.
If you're elected, there's a good chance that you're going to have to work in a divided government during your term. How would you navigate that situation and get things done, like securing federal dollars through congressional directed
Would you
spending?
repeat the first part of that?
Yes. If you're elected, there's a good chance you're going to have to work in a divided government where one chamber is controlled by either party. How would you navigate that situation and get things done, like securing federal dollars through congressional directed spending, while still being bipartisan but not losing your values?
Well, you know, you have to understand when it comes to certain values, we can't compromise. But when it comes to economic development, we have to work across the aisle. And we just don't see that very much in the Senate, you know, in today's society, unfortunately. So, you know, I'm not planning on doing things on my own. I'm planning on working with the other senators and trying to cross that divide, because we can't continue with this partisan division that we have in Washington, D.C. We have to be able to walk across the aisle and talk to people that are from other parties. You know, we're all American. Let's put America first and then party second.
Thank you, Dr. Lawhorn. We now want to call Alexander Mooney up to the podium, and he is from the northern part of the state, serves in the House of Representatives. And our first question, before we do the question, we want a 30-second opening statement.
All right. Look, West Virginia deserves a conservative U.S. senator, and I'm the only one running with a proven conservative voting record. In my 10th year representing West Virginia in Congress, I represent the northern half of the state. I've represented 2/3 of the state in Congress, been elected 5 times, including never having lost a Republican primary, because I'm a fighting conservative. Vote after vote, when you see even some Republicans go along with overspending and taxation, I vote no, because I'm an actual conservative with a proven record, and I'm giving you a clear choice in this race between a liberal Republican, Jim Justice, and a conservative Republican, Alex Mooney.
The first question for Mr. Mooney is from Cameron Gano of the Loop Press.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What would you say are some of the greatest challenges faced by the state at this time, and what are your thoughts on how to potentially overcome those challenges?
Look, I think the challenges in this country are great. Our freedoms are under attack. My mother fled a communist country. She was born and raised in Cuba. She came to live in freedom in America when she was 19 because the communists took her country from her. Our freedom of speech, what we're doing right here, is under attack in some quarters. They want to censor conservative speech on the internet. They want to tell you what you can think, what vaccines to put in your own body. We saw that during COVID. They threw you out of the military if you wouldn't vaccinate. And Mr. Justice went right along with that stuff. He locked down this state, more COVID restrictions in this state than most Democrat states. I believe in freedom. You decide what medicine to put in your body. You decide whether or not to have a firearm and whether or not you want to exercise the Second Amendment. We all deserve that. We don't deserve some of our freedoms. We deserve all of our freedoms. And I'm telling you, this debt in this country, China's buying that debt. It's a national security threat to everybody. China is buying our debt. We have $34 trillion and growing. Both parties are going along with that debt, not just Democrats. Republicans are somewhat guilty of this as well. I voted against all the Biden spending bills. You know who attacked me for voting against Biden spending bills? Jim Justice. He's basically a Democrat. If you want a Democrat, go ahead and vote for Jim Justice. But I'm a conservative fighting Republican, and you have a clear choice in this election.
The next question for Mr. Mooney from Keith Thompson, WJLS Radio.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good.
Hey, just a quick question. You've been in as a congressman for a number of years now.
10.
You want this job in the Senate. There's a separation of authority and power. You've got some now. When you move over, if you move over to the other side of the House, you're going to start pretty much at the bottom.
Sure, I hope to serve more than one term in the Senate if the voters give me that choice. And again, one of my frustrations is that the Senate tends to override the House, frankly. The House tends to recede to their position. Senators have a lot more ability to do things. They can block any legislation. One of my proudest achievements was stopping the stream buffer zone rule from coming into effect in my first term in Congress. That would have shut down all the coal mining jobs. I put a bill in, I was the lead sponsor of supporting transparent regulatory and environmental actions, the STREAM Act, and we saved those coal jobs. I fought for that bill every day. You can block stuff in the Senate. That's why you need a fighting conservative. And there's a clear difference. You can go along to get along with this stuff, and the debt's going to go up. We spend more on the interest on our debt than the entire military of the United States of America right now. That is completely irresponsible. And so in the Senate, you have a chance to work to solve that, actually pass a balanced budget. We desperately need a balanced budget. But the differences are very clear. You have people, Mr. Justice, who was a Republican originally, became a Democrat, now he's back to Republican. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow? But at least with me, you'll get a fighting conservative. And I have that proven voting record at the federal level. And again, I'm the only candidate with a proven conservative voting record. And I'm giving you a clear choice in this election. In this country, West Virginia has a clear choice in the Republican primary. Look, Joe Manchin retired, no offense, but we know this is likely to be a Republican seat. That vote in the Republican primary is crucial.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. Thank you. We now want to call Mr. Elliott back up for a 60-second closing statement. Mr. Elliott?
Thank you. And respectfully, I think the attitude that this is only going to be a Republican seat is probably not a wise one to have. It's been a Democratic seat for more than 70 years. I certainly think the voters of West Virginia know better than just to vote solely by the R or the D next to your name. It's important we have someone in the Senate seat with experience bringing people together. Wheeling is a pretty conservative city, and I've been mayor for 8 years, and we've been able to get a lot done at Wheeling. If you haven't been up there lately, come check out and see what we've done by working across the aisle, working together. If you look at what Senator Manchin's been able to do in the Senate seat, it's bring the size both parties together for some pretty significant legislative accomplishments that are benefiting our state right now, and that the governor's going around the state taking credit for a lot of things that President Biden and Senator Manchin were able to bring to the state. So I think there's room, in the Senate seat for a Democrat to continue to represent West Virginia well, and I will certainly bring all I can to this fight if given the chance here past this primary. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Glenn Elliott, Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in the state of West Virginia. Next up, a 1-minute closing statement from Dr. Lawhorn.
America has a lot of problems, and we've talked about a few of those here today. We need a problem solver. We need someone that's spent the last 4 decades solving people's problems, and that's what I've been doing. Every day I see patients that have problems. I go from one problem to another problem to another problem. We have a lot of problems in this country, and we need a problem solver. We don't need another politician that knows how to spend lots and lots of your money. The number one problem we face in this country, spiritual decay. If we don't turn this country back to Jesus Christ and the moral foundations this country was founded on, it doesn't matter who you elect. Our day is a day of action. And we don't need another politician in Washington, D.C. We need somebody that's going to stand up and say, hey, it's time to turn this country back to Jesus Christ. We need a revival. And if you elect me, that's what I'm taking to Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zane Lawhorn, Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate in West Virginia. And now we want to ask Mr. Mooney, Alex Mooney, to come up with a 1-minute closing statement.
Thank you. Look, if you want a liberal in the U.S. Senate, vote for one of the Democrats. Jim Justice, don't vote for Jim Justice. He's as liberal as any Democrat. I've been endorsed by West Virginians Citizens Defense League because I'm the only Republican with a 100% pro-Second Amendment voting record. I'm the only candidate they endorsed. If you care about your Second Amendment, I'm your guy. They endorsed me and only me in this race. Just this week, I was endorsed by the West Virginia Farm Bureau. They only endorsed me, the West Virginia Farm Bureau. Nobody else in this race. I have a 100% pro-life voting record. I'm the only candidate that can say that. Mr. Justice didn't want to repeal Obamacare, which has abortion mandates in it. He's not 100% pro-life. I'm 100% pro-life. I have a proven voting record on every issue. I support the choice whether or not to join a union. I believe in your choice whether or not to pay union dues as a condition of employment. Mr. Justice vetoed that bill in 2017. So again, if you believe in your freedom, you believe in traditional values, my name's Alex Mooney. I'm your only conservative choice for the U.S. Senate. I ask for your vote in the May 14th Republican primary. Please let your friends and family know I came down here to make sure I could see you in person and talk to you, since I've not had the privilege of representing you before. But my voting record is clear. In the 10 years I've represented most of West Virginia in Congress, and I'll give you that same conservative representation if you give me the chance to represent you in the U.S. Senate. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. Alex Mooney, Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. Let's give all the U.S. Senate candidates a round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today. We appreciate it. We want to remind the radio audience that you're listening to Meet the Candidates as a part of the Future Forward program going on today here at the Beckley-Raleigh County Convention Center, sponsored by Appalachian Power this morning, and this is all organized and put together by the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce. Now we want to move to the U.S. House of Representatives. Candidates will be given 30 seconds to introduce themselves and then given 2 questions just like the Senate candidates, and then have a 1-minute closing statement. The timekeeper will ring the bell alerting the candidate they have 10 seconds remaining, and we have the sound of the bell right on cue. There you go. We have with us today Wesley Holden, who is, I believe he's a Republican. Republican? Independent. Independent from Congressional District 1. Also, Congresswoman Carol Miller was not able to be with us today. Chris Bob Reed, also District 1, is not able to be with us today. Jim Umberger, Congressional District 1, is not able to be with us today. We have Dennis Nate Kane running in Congressional District 2. He's not able to be with us today. Joseph Joe Early from Congressional District 2, not able to be with us today. Alexander Gassarad from Congressional District 2, Republican, not able to be with us today. Riley Moore, Republican from Congressional District 2, is not able to be with us today. Chris Mookie Walker, Republican from Congressional District 2, not able to be with us today. And finally, Steve Wendelin, Democratic candidate from Congressional District 2, not able to be with us today. So it looks like, Mr. Holden, you're the man. We'll ask for a 30-second intro to introduce yourself to everyone, and welcome.
Okay. My name is Wes Holden. I'm an independent for Congress. I'm a 10th generation West Virginian. I worked for 38 years for Jay Rockefeller as his deputy state director. I was also in charge of constituent services. When constituents had issues, I would help resolve their problems. And I'm not just talking about simple problems of federal regulations or state difficulties of your road, but I also handled difficult problems outside of government. And my experience is long, and I've always been known for helping the people. So welcome any questions that you may have, and it's an honor. And I'm sort of disappointed my opponents are not here, but this area of West Virginia has always been important to me. I would come here, especially after the floods, and I was always disappointed in seeing the financial hardship, seeing the economic loss, and I feel we must do something to improve this area of West Virginia. Thank you.
Well, we have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Holden. First off, from Damon Kane of the Register Herald. Question number 1.
Yes, thank you for showing up. In 2003, Congress only passed 34 bills into law, the lowest number in decades. And once again, the Speaker's gavel is hanging in the balance as conservative Republicans revolt over his support of the budget bill. As an independent running for this office, what can you do to bring the two sides together to assure a smoother running government and progress for the American people?
Thank you very much for your question, Darren. This year and this past year has been the worst Congress since perhaps the days of Harry S. Truman, the do-nothing Congress. And it is so unfortunate that our congresspeople are so concerned with petty party politics. We must do the will of the people. As an independent, I feel that if we have a close Congress of the equal number of Democrats and Republicans, they're going to come to me and seek my vote. When they're seeking my vote, there's one question that I want to ask them. What are you going to do for Southern West Virginia? That is my primary goal. I care about Southern West Virginia. I've cared about it for years, ever since, as I mentioned, when I would come here representing Senator Rockefeller. The budget that you asked about, Mr. Kane, we must have and work toward a balanced budget. If we don't have a balanced budget, we're going to be fiscally irresponsible. I have to balance my budget. And one thing, I have to balance my campaign budget. I'm not a wealthy person, so I have to watch my pennies and nickels.
The next question for Mr. Holden from Lola Reiser of WWNR.
Mr. Holden, as you know, there has been some shifting in the congressional districts because the population of West Virginia has been declining. What do you see as a plan to attract more people to the state?
Well, let's consider where that population loss is. It's more from southern West Virginia than any other counties across the state. This area of West Virginia is sitting on a gold mine, and I'm surprised it has not been taken advantage of so much more. Think of all the flat land that's on the Fayette-Raleigh Plateau. You have interstates going by. It's prime for economic development. Over by the airport, the new industrial park going in, that is something that will really give a shot in the arm to southern West Virginia, to the Beckley area, but there's other places that can be developed. I will be like Senator J. Rockefeller. When he was on the Senate, he would bring businesses here to show them around the state and entice them to come here. I will follow that same plan, and if you want to know what that plan was, it was called the J train. I will have a Wes Holden train of bringing people to this area, bringing businesses to this area to improve the economy, to build up the population, to improve our school system so that we have an educated workforce.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Now, a 1-minute closing statement.
Oh, shucks, can I not have more? There's no one else here. I want to let the people know about me. Anyway, one thing I want you to know. Even though I live in Kanawha County, I spend 3 to 4 days a week here in Raleigh County. I've been dating my fiance for the past 8 years. I love southern West Virginia. I love the New River Gorge area. We go hiking it all the time. We travel here and there across southern West Virginia. And it is a gem. And I want people to know that we can do more to promote West Virginia. I just don't want interstate restaurants. I don't want interstate hotels. I want real economic development where people can work and retire and pass those jobs on to their children. The southern coalfields must take advantage of the historic $3 billion in the Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration to build up rural economies that are resilient to future economic shocks, including a $300 million coal communities commitment by the government. And I understand the values of community, faith, and service because they have defined my life. From attending church, my military service, to more than 3 decades of meeting the needs of my fellow West Virginians while working for J. Rockefeller, my life has been dedicated to serving the public. I will be the voters' common sense candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wesley Holden, independent candidate for Congressional District 1, U.S. House of Representatives in the state of West Virginia. Thank you for being with us. We now want to move on to the next part of our forum today. It's the Secretary of State race. And again, candidates will be given 2 questions. They'll have a 30-second intro and a minute closing statement. And the timekeeper will ring the bell, alerting the candidates that they have 10 seconds left. So listen for the cowbell. We have this roster of candidates for Secretary of State. Thornton Cooper, Democrat, not able to be with us today. Mr. Ken Reed, Republican, who's with us today. Mr. Doug Scaff Jr., Republican, he is with us today. Chris Warner, Republican, with us today. And Brian Wood, a Republican, also attending with us today. Welcome, gentlemen. First up, we'd like to call Mr. Ken Reed up to the podium. And if you would give us a 30-second opening statement, and then we'll get into our questions.
All right, well, thank you. I want to thank the Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce for inviting me down here to this section of the country. I am currently running for Secretary of State. I'm a small businessman. I started out in 1998 opening up a small pharmacy in a small little rural town, just like most of the people here that have stations. And from there, I grew businesses into a multi-business chain and eventually moved into public policy, which I became a Morgan County commissioner, and then I became a Berkeley County, Morgan County delegate. And now I'm decided to try to use my skill set and move West Virginia forward as a Secretary of State. I appreciate you guys inviting me down here.
Okay, our first question, Mr. Reed, comes from Ben Schwartz of WVVA.
Thank you. Americans' confidence in election integrity has reached some historic lows in recent years. What can you do as Secretary of State to ensure that West Virginians are confident that their vote is being properly counted and cast?
That's a great question. Thank you for it. West Virginia, historically in the past, has had very good election security. The current Secretary Mac Warner has done a very good job with that. I plan to continue with that and work with the clerks. As a county commissioner, I worked with the clerks in that county, and I'm very familiar with the whole process of how it works. I am confident in our system as it is. My biggest fear going forward is actually AI, artificial intelligence, and how it's going to affect the elections going from now forward. I think it's a Pandora's box. We don't know how it's going to work. But in general, I plan to keep what we're doing now, which is very good. The county commissioners randomly pick, for those who don't know, randomly pick precincts, and then we physically count them. I did that for quite a few years, and we have found very few problems in this state. I think West Virginia does an excellent job with the security part. So I believe we can push that out to the public so they can understand.
Next question for Mr. Reed, Rivers Upchurch, 59 News.
Good morning, Mr. Reed. What is one thing that you feel differentiates you from the other candidates on the stage with you today?
The one thing that differentiates me from the other candidates, I've been a Republican for a very long time. That's one of the differences between me and one of the other candidates. I also have been a small business owner for a very long time. I've run a very efficient small business for 20 plus years. I believe my skill set as a CEO runs hand in hand with the Secretary of State's office. My experience with being in public office, which was the county commissioner job, and delegate, give me a little insight to the legislative process, and also where the rubber meets the road. County commissioners are where the rubber meets the road, and the process with the elections and the clerks and the county commissioners all run hand in hand. That experience that I have, I believe, puts me far above everyone else on this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. If you'll hang on, we'll call you back for a closing statement in just a few minutes. We want to remind our radio audience that you're listening to Meet the Candidates as a part of Future Forward from the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce here at the Beckley-Raleigh County Convention Center. Brought to you this morning by Appalachian Power on WJLS Beckley and WWNR Beckley. Next, we want to call Mr. Doug Scaff Jr. up for his 30-second opening statement. Mr. Scaff.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Melissa, for putting this on. Great job. My name is Doug Scaff, lifelong West Virginian, born and raised in South Charleston, West Virginia. I'm a proud father of 3, 7, 6, and 5, so I'm doing my part to help population growth in West Virginia. I'm a mediocre soccer coach and a decent little midget league basketball coach. Twice graduate WVU Business School. I got an honorary doctorate degree in public service from West Virginia State University. Small business own businesses of all sizes. Pride myself in waking up every week and working hard to make a payroll for my employees. I pride in growing out and growing businesses across all West Virginia. I own 13 newspapers throughout southern West Virginia as well as Charleston and beyond. I also own 2 in Virginia. As a small business owner, I know what it's like to think about all of West Virginia, not just one pocket area. We've seen a lot of growth and development in the northern panhandle and the eastern panhandle, but it's time to put our money where our mouth is in southern West Virginia and do what we can to put the resources and tools it takes. I know it firsthand by owning papers in the South. Lastly, I've been served in the legislature. I have honor and privilege to serve in the legislature, been elected by the people of West Virginia 6 times. I look forward for you to get to know me. I have a booth right back there. Doug Scaff, Secretary of State. Come by and stop and get one of my pamphlets.
Thank you, Mr. Scaff. We have a couple of questions for you. First from Micah Leath of WOAY-TV.
We mentioned AI already in the context of elections, but I want to shift that discussion to a different area of your office, which is business.
Yes.
What impact do you think AI is going to play on businesses in West Virginia, and what would your office do to help ease that introduction into our economy?
AI is here and it's not going away. It's going to have the biggest impact like the internet did. I mean, you all are journalists. You know what the impact it has in the news industry right now. It's scary. It's scary what's happening right now. You either embrace it or you get ran over by it. From a business standpoint, you got to use AI to our advantage. What can we do to help businesses grow, adapt, and expand? There are certain places where you can't find workers. One of the biggest issues right now in West Virginia is you can't find workers. Maybe there is a place for AI to go out there and help us when it comes to that. But we have to embrace it. We have to create models and forums and conversations like this. But don't pretend like it doesn't exist, because it's here and it's not going away. So we need to educate business owners of all sizes how to deal with it. And most importantly, the consumers need to understand. If this was an AI, artificial intelligence created template or memo, so the last thing we need to do is to go and our population and the people get kind of coerced by some sort of AI generated thing. So we got to be on the forefront. We got to partner with Marshall University and the cybersecurity school down there so we stay on the front of the cusp of being set the world standards when it comes to AI, cybersecurity, keep our elections safe and our businesses safe.
Cameron Gano of the Loop Press has your next question, Mr. Scaff.
Hey, Cameron.
Good morning. What are your thoughts on the performance of current Secretary of State Mac Warner, and are there any things you might hope to do differently if elected?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, Secretary Warner's done a phenomenal job of working to purge the voter rolls and going out. That has to be constantly done. You can't just wait every 4 years or every time there's a new candidate stands up here and it sounds good to talk about. You got to continue to do that with the way our population is. You go through. Here's what I think we can do better. Bottom line here is we got to get into the school system. One of the roles of Secretary of State is we have to get our youth energized and engaged and involved in the election process the minute they turn 18. Let's get them to be poll workers. Let's get them out there to go out and canvass and work with people. Just get them involved in the process, whether in student governments or not. We can do a better job of that going into the schools. They do a decent job. We can do better. Second thing is, everything is right there held in the palm of your hand. We need an app. We need an app that you can go and get all the tools and resources you need in the Secretary of State's office right from the palm of your hand if we want the next generation of students to be engaged in West Virginia. Third, user-friendly website. God bless it. There's tons of information on that website. Just go out there. But as the front door for all businesses as you get set up in West Virginia, you're setting up your LLC or whatnot, that has to be an easier way. You go out there and look, there's 300 different choices. I mean, we got to streamline that, make it easier to do business. I was blessed and honored to travel with Senator Blair, President Blair of the Senate, Roger Hanshaw, Speaker of the House. We traveled all around the country recruiting businesses to come to West Virginia and choose West Virginia. The first thing they said was, how easy is it to get set up to do business, sustain your business, and are you going to continue to change regulations or not? And at the front door for all businesses in West Virginia, the Secretary of State's office must be the easiest office to do business with.
Thank you, Mr. Scaff. We'll ask
Thank
you to
you.
hang around and we'll get your 60-second closing statement here in just a moment.
Thank you.
We next want to call up Mr. Chris Warner, Republican, running for Secretary of State. A 30-second opening statement, Mr. Warner.
My name is Chris Warner. I was appointed by President Trump to create jobs here in West Virginia. I did that as the State Director for Rural Development. I currently serve under Governor Justice as his Executive Director for the West Virginia Economic Development Authority. I'm a lifelong Christian conservative Republican. I've been married to my wife Joyce for 35 years. We've raised 5 kids that all have attended the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. I would suggest to you that my entire family has a heart for public service. Thank you for inviting us today.
First question for Mr. Warner comes from Keith Thompson of WJLS.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Your brother is current Secretary of State.
Yes, sir.
So you should know a little bit about the office. For those that don't know, and you hear a lot about the Secretary of State's office when it comes around to election time because, you know, the governs all the elections. What else happens in there behind the closed doors?
Well, there are 51 employees. Only 6 of them are focused on elections. There are at least 41 that are involved with business registration. I would suggest to you that business registration and elections are very closely tied, and I would give you the example of Kevin O'Leary was in town from Shark Tank not too many weeks ago, and we were talking about what it takes to attract businesses to individual states. And he said the last thing you want is a state that where elections are not run safe, secure, fair, and honest. So registering the businesses that are located here, having a Secretary of State that's involved that can help attract those businesses to West Virginia is of utmost importance.
Thank you.
Next question, Mr. Warner, from Damon Kane of the Register Herald.
Thank you. Welcome. So, being in charge of the elections in West Virginia, it seems like the bigger issue here is how do we get voters to the polls? The voter participation in this state has been less than 50% for a very long time. It's one thing that your brother hasn't been able to crack just yet. What are you going to do to make sure to help boost participation in our democracy here?
I think we build the foundation that's been built by the current Secretary of State is of utmost importance, working with the 55 county clerks, but more importantly, going into each one of the high school and registering voters. At the same time that the county clerks and the current Secretary of State have taken over 400,000 names off the voter rolls of ineligible voters, they have registered almost 300,000 new voters in West Virginia in the last 7 years. The county clerks, though, make no mistake about it. The Secretary of State may be the chief election official in the state, but the 55 county clerks are those that run the elections in each one of the 55 counties.
But how do you build on that? And because that hasn't produced a level of participation that tops 50% yet. So what are you going to do to build on that?
The best way to increase participation is to make sure that you have safe, secure, fair, and honest elections, and use the position to make sure that folks know that we have safe, secure, fair, and honest elections.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. If you'll hang around, we'll ask you back for a 60-second closing statement. Next up, Mr. Brian Wood, Republican, running for Secretary of State. Your 30-second opening statement, Mr. Wood.
Good morning. My name is Brian Wood, a faith-based, lifelong Republican. I have served Putnam County 2 terms as magistrate, and I'm currently in my 4th term as Putnam County Clerk. My motto for my campaign is Experience Matters. I've served the county of Putnam for 20 years in managing a multi-faceted office, managing elections, training poll workers, preparing the equipment. I know the equipment, I know the team in place. I served as the president of the County Clerks Association, so I have relationships with all 55 county clerks throughout the state. Those relationships, along with the relationships with the legislature, will pay dividends to the state of West Virginia if you elect me as your next Secretary of State. I'm honored to even be standing here and running. I'm not the typical statewide candidate. I come from the county level where the rubber meets the road, but I'm asking you to for your support and for your vote. Thank you very much.
First question for you, Mr. Wood, comes from Lola Reiser of WWNR.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
For years, there's been concern over the use of electronic and online type of voting systems. When we're having elections, we always hear that some of the units aren't working. Would you bring embracing technology and having that consistency that gives people the confidence that their vote is actually counted?
Yes, when you are the county clerk, you got to prepare for the worst case scenario. So you always have the plan B, plan C, and so forth. When it comes to the election equipment, I believe that we must stand firm to have that voter verified paper trail when it comes to elections to keep the voters' confidence, and that we can audit our voting results at the end of the process. The equipment is good for election night results, so you do not have election results coming in 2, 3, 4 days later. So that's important as well for the media as well as the public. When it comes to, I'm asking the citizens of West Virginia to allow my 20 years of experience in handling all this to pay dividends, because when the team comes to me with questions, concerns, or roads to go down, I can process it and with using my experience and determine, yes, this is good, no, this is not, and this is why. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And your second question is from Ben Schwartz of WVVA.
Thank you. So yourself and many of your opponents are proud conservatives. Can you tell us why those conservative values are important for the Secretary of State to have here, and why your conservative values, if they do differ from any of your opponents, why those are good values?
When it comes to the office of the Secretary of State, I've been a lifelong Republican. I'm proud of that. When it comes to the Secretary of State's office, we're like a judge, we're like a jury, we're like an umpire. We have the black robe and we don't side one way or another. We're the executive branch of government, therefore we follow the rules, we follow the laws, and we apply the laws evenly across the board. But I am a Republican, a lifelong Republican, and I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. We'll call you back here in just a moment for a closing statement. We want to ask Mr. Reed to come back up and do a 1-minute closing statement.
All right, again, thank you so much for inviting me down to Raleigh County. My name is Ken Reed, and I am a candidate for the Secretary of State's office. I just want to push out there that as a small business owner, I fully understand the impact of the Secretary of State, especially with the business office part of the Secretary of State. It is where the rubber meets the road. It's bringing back the American dream. When I was started a long time ago, I was born and raised in the northern Panhandle. I'm a steel mill kid. And I started out with less than nothing. And I was able to go to college, meet my wife, start a family, and then move out into the world of small business. And I know what it's like to walk the floors at 2 a.m. wondering how you're going to pay your employees. I understand that. I did it. I waited. I sweated it out. I worked 80 hours a week starting with that. My wife worked at the VA, and she's the one who had the insurance for us and our 4 children, while I was pounding away in a small, tiny little house that I converted into a pharmacy. Hard work brings good things coming down the track, and I believe that the Secretary of State's business part of it, I can welcome these people into the state or try to get the young kids here to get into the business world, because that's how you step up to the middle class and then move up from there. It's the American dream. Again, thank you so much for having me down here.
Thank you, Mr. Ken Reed, Republican for Secretary of State. We'd now like to ask Mr. Doug Scaff Jr. to do your 1-minute closing statement.
Thank you very much. Once again, I appreciate your consideration. I'm going to start by answering Damon's question again. It goes back to it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. How do you get people re-engaged and involved in the election process and increase voter turnout? That's why I want to start with our 18-year-olds. When they start, when they sign up, teach them the value and importance of how important it is to get involved and exercise your right to vote. If we start there, I think we can see those numbers increase. Number two, I'm a proven job creator. It starts right here with the people in this room. God bless you all for what you do. You are the backbone of this state. Small business owners are the backbone of the state. I'm sick and tired of giving out $500 million in surplus money to a lot of out-of-state corporations and convince them to do business in West Virginia. Now, I'm all about asking them to come here, but we shouldn't have to bribe them to come here. What about you all? If I asked you to raise your hands, how many of you got a bit of that surplus to help your small business grow and succeed? I think when you have surpluses, you look to West Virginia businesses first, the Secretary of State's office, help lead the role. I want to create a division, Save Our Small Business Fund. So you have a fund out there. If you have a little bit of hardships, you come and apply, we can help save you because you are the backbone of this state. I want to help you succeed, grow, give you the tools and resources you need. And lastly, we got to come together. As a Secretary of State, you're like a referee. You got to encourage people to vote, regardless if you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. You work for all. As a business owner, I'm pretty sure when you go out and you have an application, you ask what type of business you are. Nowhere on that application does it say you're a Democratic-run business or a Republican-run business. You have to be open and free and honest and respected by all West Virginians. God bless you all. Thanks for being here. My name is Doug Scaff. Remember me for Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doug Scaff, Jr., Republican running for Secretary of State. Next up with the 60-second closing statement, Chris Warner, Republican for Secretary of State. Mr. Warner?
Being in Raleigh County, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you I'm really excited about the economic development occurring at the airport, the Klockner Pentaplast project, the Shell building. You're doing excellent work, and I think we're poised for growth. We all know that it's important for safe, secure, fair, and honest elections. I want to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. I'm proud to report that I've been endorsed by West Virginians for Life, the Farm Bureau, oil and gas workers, county commissioners and delegates from around West Virginia, and several of our county executive committees. I would suggest to you that I'm qualified, measured, and tested at the highest levels of the federal and state government, and I would greatly appreciate your vote on Election Day. Thank you.
Mr. Chris Warner, Republican for Secretary of State. Next up, Brian Wood. Your 60-second closing statement, please.
Thank you. Yes, sir. This primary election, the voters of West Virginia have three choices. They can vote for money, they can vote for a name, or they can vote for experience. It is my hope that you vote for experience and allow my 20 years of election management pay dividends to the state of West Virginia, keep your elections safe and secure. My 26 years of public office management to pay dividends to you, to serve you through the business side of things and managing the office in general. I ask for your support. My name is Brian Wood. You can go to woodforwestvirginia.com, woodforwestvirginia.com. And in this May, I hope you will knock on wood. Thank you very much.
Mr. Brian Wood, Republican for Secretary of State. Let's give a round of applause for all of our Secretary of State candidates. We appreciate you being with us today. Next up on our Meet the Candidates forum, as we continue along here this morning, we're going to look at the auditor race. Unfortunately, none of the auditor candidates could be with us today, but we want to recognize them. We have Caleb L. Hanna, Republican, running for auditor. Also, Eric L. Householder, Republican. Mark Hunt, Republican, running for auditor. Tricia Jackson, also Republican, running for auditor. And Mary Ann Roebuck Clater, Democrat, running for state auditor. And we do want to make sure that we let you know about that race as well. Next up, state treasurer's race. The candidate that's running, Larry Pack, Republican, is running unopposed, and he'll be running for state treasurer, and that comes up in the May primary as well. We want to move next to the Commissioner of Agriculture. It's the same format. Each candidate will have 30 seconds as an opening statement, and then 2 one-minute questions and a 1-minute closing statement. You can listen for the cowbell, and you get that 10-second warning that your time is up. The candidates running for Commissioner of Agriculture include Deborah Stiles, Democrat. She's not able to be with us today. Joshua Kurt Higginbotham, Republican, who is with us today. Kent Leonhardt, Republican, with us today. And Roy Ramey, Republican, not able to be with us this morning. We first want to ask Joshua Kurt Higginbotham to come up and do a 30-second opening statement. Not here? Okay, sorry about that. So we have the one man right here. Here we go. Mr. Kent Leonhardt, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. If you could do a 30-second opening statement.
Thank you very much, and thank the Chamber for putting this on. My name is Kent Leonhardt. I'm the current Commissioner of Agriculture, seeking a third term, asking for your vote in the re-election on May 14th in the primary. I've got some roots here in Raleigh County, believe it or not. Before I entered the political scene, when I was first a West Virginia State Senator from the 2nd District, and our farm is up in Monongalia County. That's a farm that my wife and I bought in 1982 and restored after I retired from the United States Marine Corps in 1996. But prior to getting into the political world, I did buy a second home here in Raleigh County, and I'm very proud and very interested in what happens in southern West Virginia. In fact, throughout my term as Commissioner of Agriculture, we've been working to try to develop an agricultural event center here in Raleigh County and to serve all of southern West Virginia. So not only is my farm up north, but I've been working very hard for you in the south as well.
Your first question, Mr. Leonhardt, comes from Rivers Upchurch of 59 News.
Good morning, Mr. Leonhardt. What are some of the big issues in West Virginia agriculture that you feel like you personally can make a real difference in if you are elected to serve again?
Well, that's a great question. There's a lot of issues on that. We have some great, a lot of pressure on our agricultural communities, particularly over in the Eastern Panhandle, where we're seeing an explosive growth of population and farms being put into housing developments. And then we've had some issues in the South here, where our coal fields have been under threat. We've lost a lot of the coal mining jobs. And those small farms that were once run by miners that worked part-time on their farm after they worked all day in the mines, they left the state, and some of those farms were abandoned. But given all that, we are still growing agriculture in West Virginia. When I took office, agricultural production in the state of West Virginia was in the 700 million range. National Ag Statistics Service just reported out that we are now, in 2022, $947 million in agricultural output. It's the matter that we are increasing agricultural output, and we're going to continue to work for those agricultural jobs. We've tripled farmers markets since I've been in office. We've also, red meat production is up 51%, and our farmers have provided 57% more West Virginia products into the retail market. We're growing agriculture in West Virginia despite all the pressures.
And your final question, Mr. Leonhardt, comes from Micah Leath of WOAY-TV.
For decades, the economics of farming have been changing as it becomes tougher and tougher for small family farms to stay in business. How do you manage the needs of the small family farmer with the needs of the big corporate farmer?
Well, actually, the Department of Agriculture is changing the environment at the department from a highly regulatory agency to an educate before regulate. So we help all farms and all agricultural businesses come into compliance with, and most of the laws are federal, let's face it. And we have cooperative agreements with the federal government to have a West Virginian do the work rather than have a bureaucrat from Washington come into the state of West Virginia. But we've seen the great successes. A simple thing like we did when I first took office is we got rid of the health certificate that every farmer had to get to serve at a farmer's market throughout the state of West Virginia. And they had to go to each and every county. We got rid of all that. There's one free permit so we can track for health concerns at the Department of Agriculture. So a farmer only has to get one permit and he can go to any county. That has helped. That's one of the reasons we've grown agriculture and we've been able to do it so well.
Thank you, Mr. Leonhardt. Now we need a 1-minute closing statement.
All righty. Well, it's certainly been an honor to be your Commissioner of Agriculture. Not only have we done great things here in the state of West Virginia, but we've also been able to put ourselves on the national stage. How cool is it to have a Commissioner of Agriculture from West Virginia elected president unanimously by big agricultural states of the Southern Association of State Departments of Agriculture? I'm talking about Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia. I was also elected recently, and I'm currently the Vice President of the Southern U.S. Trade Association for agricultural exports. I want to make sure West Virginia is ready to do that export as we continue to grow agriculture. And the current president of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture asked Kent Leonhardt to become the chairman of the Rural Development Financial Security Committee on the national stage. I've testified to Congress on chronic wasting disease, and I have a great relationship with those folks in Washington. We're making sure things happen here in West Virginia, and I look forward to serving another 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Kent Leonhardt, Republican for Commissioner of Agriculture. Thank you for being with us today. We want to remind our radio audience that you're listening to Meet the Candidates as a part of Future Forward, put on by the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce here at the Beckley-Raleigh County Convention Center. And our forum this morning is being brought to you by Appalachian Power Company. We want to move now to Attorney General, same format. We're going to ask for a 30-second opening statement, then we're going to do 2 questions, and then a 1-minute closing statement. Here are the candidates for Attorney General in the state of West Virginia. John J.B. McCuskey, Republican, running. Also Richie Robb, Democrat. He's not able to be with us today. Mike Stewart, Republican, also running. And Teresa Torreseva. She's running for the statewide Attorney General, and she is a Democrat. So first up, we want to invite Mr. J.B. McCluskey, John McCluskey, to do your 30-second opening statement.
Good morning, thank you. It's wonderful to be back in Beckley, city that I had the wonderful opportunity to live in for a couple years, in the room where George W. Bush came from right here behind us and rocked this crowd. So my name's J.B. McCuskey. I've been the state auditor for West Virginia for the last 7.5 years. Prior to that, I was in the legislature, and I've been proud to be part of a team of people that have really brought West Virginia into the forefront in our country's eyes. There are businesses from all around this country that are saying to themselves, why not West Virginia? And we have this incredible opportunity in front of us to truly reach the greatness that West Virginia has been searching for. And I believe that being the next Attorney General will give me an absolutely phenomenal platform to defend West Virginia's values and make sure that everyone understands why this is the best place in the country to raise your small family.
Thank you, Mr. McCuskey. Your first question comes from Cameron Gano of the Lute Press.
Current Attorney General Patrick Morrisey has placed a pretty significant emphasis on the addressing of the opioid epidemic impacting the state. If elected, how would you approach taking on such a substantial issue?
Yeah, so at this point now what we're talking about is how do we manage the First Foundation? How do we make sure that this generationally large amount of money that has been that has come into our state can be used to make sure that we avoid this problem forever going forward. We know that we have to do everything we can to take care of people that have substance abuse disorder, but we really need to focus, and the singular #1 focus of the foundation needs to be how do we ensure that less kids, way less kids, fall victim to this incredible scourge. If we are sitting here answering this question in 20 years, we will have failed, and West Virginia cannot allow that to happen again. So it's truly about prevention. It's about ensuring that children understand the risks associated with these drugs, and it's about ensuring that we have an economy in West Virginia that allows our children to be successful and aren't victims of the depression that can come from hopelessness and from joblessness.
Thank you.
Second question, Keith Thompson, WJLS.
Thank you very much, and welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to have to change directions because he hit the question right on the head that I was getting ready to ask. But we'll take it from the other standpoint of that question about the opioid money and settlements and all this and the other. What else would you continue to do that Morrisey has been doing?
So the most important thing that we need to do in our Attorney General's office is we have to continue to lead the country in defending the values of people who mine coal and frack gas and who farm and who do all of the things that drive our economy. We live in a world now where politicians in Washington, people in California, people in New York, they don't believe that we should have the opportunity to be successful because they've decided that our economy doesn't matter. Well, they're 100% wrong. Our country was built with the coal that was mined right under the feet of the people that live in Raleigh County. And we have to continue to be the nation's leader in defending against the overreach that prevents our people from being successful. And on the same topic, we have to ensure that people are allowed to live in the kind of freedom that West Virginians enjoy. And the same group of people do not believe that our lifestyle matters. And I will stand up every single day to ensure that West Virginians' values are defended against these incredible overreaches from places that, quite frankly, have never cared about West Virginia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCuskey. We'll ask you to come back up in just a moment for a 1-minute closing statement. Up next, Mike Stewart, Republican, running for the State Attorney General, and we need a 30-second opening statement, Mr.
Great,
Stewart.
thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here this morning. I'm the proud son and grandson of West Virginia coal miners. I currently serve in the state Senate. I have the distinction of being the only person in West Virginia to be asked by President Trump to work for him twice. Once to be the co-chair of his campaign in 2016, and then to be the United States Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia with a pretty big record. Prosecuted 2 members of the state Supreme Court, largest Medicaid fraud takedown in the history of West Virginia, largest drug raid in the history of West Virginia, and took enough fentanyl off the streets to kill more than 40 million people. I'm no stranger to Beckley. I've been here many times on many prosecutions, those notably of people like Natalie Cochran. An Operation Shutdown Corner, a major drug raid that went from San Diego to Raleigh County, and I'm just pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Your first question, Mr. Stewart, comes from Damon Kane of the Register Herald.
Welcome, Mr. Stewart. The wife of a state trooper who was slain in the line of duty says you have repeatedly used the details of her case for your political gain. Are you going to stop doing that, and are you going to apologize to her?
Well, I have apologized to her, and I reached out to her months ago, but this is an issue that is fundamentally important to West Virginians, tough on crime. My record's tough on crime. And when law enforcement officers are mowed down in the line of duty, and that's not just a limited single family, that's Cassie Johnson on the streets of Charleston. That's Nicholas County Sheriff's Deputy Baker. Abe Bean up in Martinsburg, who was shot at and lost his leg. Crime is growing in America today. Crime is growing in West Virginia today. My record is unapologetically tough on crime. We've got to be tough on crime. I support the death penalty if you ambush and kill first responders in the line of duty. I make no apologies for that, but I feel horrible if I've brought additional trauma to a widow of a slain officer. And my heart goes out to her. But this was a political setup because I'm winning this race. And I know how this game is played. I'm new at it. But this was clear political setup by my opponent in this race. Why? Because they're desperate to change the definition of this race. From an insurgent candidate who's America first and pro tough on crime to let's take down the leading candidate. We're going to continue fighting. I'm going to continue talking about tough on crime. And I think it's important for West Virginians that our people are safe on our streets.
Next question, Mr. Stewart, from Lola Reiser of WWNR.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Previous attorney generals have frequently announced that they have settled or won cases in the battle against opioid addiction. Are the settlements enough to stop what's happening in West Virginia?
Wow, so this is a great question, the challenge of our time. You know, we've lost more people to opioid overdose over the past 2 years than were lost during the entirety of the Vietnam War. I carry a wallet every single day, test me if you see me out, filled with the faces of the victims of the opioid crisis while I was U.S. Attorney. These settlement dollars aren't enough. The First Foundation is a good first step in terms of solving this crisis, but we have to make sure this one-time opportunity, this blessing that fell from the sky of almost $1 billion, is used to solve the opioid crisis, or what we'll end up with at the end of those dollars being gone is an opioid crisis. This is a huge challenge. There's not a street, a school, a family, a church, a community that hasn't been impacted by this crisis. These pictures haunt me in the dark of night. When I announced my run for Attorney General, the first person to call was Melody Douglas. Her daughter succumbed to a fentanyl overdose. It was an honor. I view myself as fighting and waging this war. And my top priority as the Attorney General will be continuing to fight this. That first foundation, those first settlements that went out to communities, most of those dollars went to pay legacy jail bills. Not one bit of that will go to solve this crisis. We need to make sure the next Attorney General is focused on solving the opioid crisis, and that's what I intend to do.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. If you'll hang around, we'll have you back for a closing statement. We next want to invite up to the podium Teresa Torreseva, who is Democrat for this Attorney General office, and we would like to have a 30-second opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Teresa Torreseva. I'm a courtroom lawyer from Wheeling, West Virginia. I grew up on a small family farm in rural Marshall County. I come from a history of working people, West Virginians. The county I grew up in is a coal mining county, and I intend to bring a couple of things very different to the Office of Attorney General than what we've seen. I can assure you my 30 years of an aggressive courtroom litigator, both in the West Virginia courts and nationally, is what I would bring to the Office of Attorney General.
Okay, we have a couple of questions for you, Ms. Torreseva. First up from Ben Schwartz of WVVA. Ben?
Hello. Good morning. Can you tell us if you believe Attorney General Patrick Morrisey succeeded in settling with opioid distributors in West Virginia? Do you believe you could have gotten more money?
I do not believe he succeeded. I do not believe the money was a blessing from the sky. I believe that we should have led the nation, since the big pharma industry led the nation dumping pills in West Virginia. We should have led the nation, and we should have proportionately gotten a lot more money for our people, and we need it to fix infrastructure here with regard to first responders. We have an EMS crisis in West Virginia, especially in southern West Virginia, where people can't get ambulances. We need the money to fix the harm that was done. So do I think it was enough? No. But what I will tell you is, looking forward, what we have to do is very, very carefully and cautiously use that money to make the problem better. Thank you.
Next question, Ms. Torreseva, from Rivers of Church of 59 News.
Good morning. As the only Democrat on the stage right now, how do you feel like your decisions that you would make with the money in the West Virginia First Foundation would be different from the other people on the stage right now?
Well, my decision would be based on my history and experience of representing first responders. I'm endorsed by the PFF West Virginia, the professional firefighters, for example. I've also represented sheriff's deputies, school nurses around the state, and continue to do that. And I would focus there on rebuilding our infrastructure, a word I haven't heard used. I'm different in the race because I'm a Democrat, and you probably have noticed I'm the only woman on the stage. Never in the history of the state of West Virginia has a female occupied any of the offices of public works. We have had a female Secretary of State, so it's time. I'll bring a very different perspective as a woman, as a Democrat, and as someone who has been in the fire stations, been in the police departments with the men and women who provide the service on the front line, with the firefighters that have had to administer, administer Narcan 4 or 5 times in the same day to the same individual. So I have the perspective to know where the need is, and the need is with public safety in West Virginia, and we all know that's not working, and we're not getting the job done there, or we wouldn't have entire areas in southern West Virginia that can't get an ambulance when someone's having a heart attack.
Thank you, Ms. Torreseva. We'll have you back in just a moment for a closing statement. Mr. McCluskey, John McCluskey, if you would come up and do a 1-minute closing statement, please.
Like I said before, my name is J.B. McCuskey, and I am a Christian, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a small business owner, and as my time as auditor, we have prosecuted more than 47 local officials for felony fraud. We have returned over $100 million back to the general revenue. We have fought back hard against ESG policies that hurt our coal and gas industries. And we have done so while making our office smaller, more efficient, and completely reforming our state's bureaucracy. I am so excited to be the next Attorney General of West Virginia because I know that we can accomplish two very important things. We can make sure that our schools provide the best education to our students possible. We can make sure that we're taking care of people in West Virginia who have less of an opportunity than we do. And we can make sure that we are delivering infrastructure to the people of West Virginia that matters. But importantly, we can ensure that the values of West Virginia, our greatest asset, are protected so that we can continue to grow and that we can grow our own way. We need to add more mountaineers to West Virginia. We don't need people moving here from New York that want West Virginia to turn into New York. I will stand up and fight every single day. I have the record, I have the endorsements, and I have the campaign that can win this election and make sure that we continue to lead this country in defending the values that we hold dear. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm so thankful to be back in Beckley, and I can't wait to be back and see you guys soon. Thank you.
Mr. John J.B. McCluskey, Republican for Attorney General. Next up, we'd like a 1-minute closing statement. Mr. Mike Stewart.
Well, great. Thank you again. Thank you very much for having me today. I can tell you as I travel around West Virginia, West Virginians are hurting, and it's genuine, and inflation and gas prices and surging utility rates. But that's not the only challenge. It's liberals in Washington, like the Biden administration, who are out to kill our jobs and destroy our way of life, to shut down our coal industry, to make it impossible to drill our gas, who want to rein in on the Second Amendment. That's what you need an attorney general for. And you don't need a soft attorney general. You need one who's tough. Why? Those folks in Washington aren't soft. They're tough. And they're out to destroy everything we value and care about. I'm running not for governor, not to fix your infrastructure, but to be your chief lawyer to fight back. I've been endorsed by the Coal Association. I've been endorsed by the Citizens Defense League. I've been rated an A from the NRA. I've been endorsed by West Virginians for Life. I've been endorsed by the West Virginia Family Policy Council. I'm going to be outfunded in this race. I'm relying on people in little white houses with white picket fences to come to the defense of West Virginia and allow somebody like me to take over at the Attorney General's office to continue great work to make sure we fight back against people like the Biden administration who are out to destroy everything we care about. And I do support President Trump. My website's makewvgreat.com, makewvgreat.com. I urge you to go there and find out more about my campaign, but thank you very much for the honor of being here today.
Mr. Mike Stewart, Republican for Attorney General. Now we'd like to invite Teresa Torreseva back up to the podium, Democrat for Attorney General, with a 1-minute closing statement.
So I've been fighting in courtrooms for the people who provide public safety for the last decade, and for the last 30 years I've been fighting in courtrooms for working people. I'm endorsed by mine workers, teachers, firefighters, and I currently represent first responders in 22 counties in West Virginia. I will bring choice to the ballot, both in my gender, but also in my approach. There are 39% Republicans, 32% Democrats, and 24% independents in the state of West Virginia. An attorney general needs to represent all of those people and not be a partisan hack. It's really that simple. We need a lawyer for the state of West Virginia, and that's what the job of the attorney general is, and that's what I'll be. I've been a lawyer since I was 24 years old, coming through public schools and then Wheeling Jesuit University and WVU College of Law. I love West Virginia, and I love to fight for West Virginia because we're forgotten too often. I'll focus on the problems inside our border, and I'll take care of the people of West Virginia and make you proud of your Attorney General. You can go to teresaforattorneygeneral.com or find us on social media where we're very active talking about our campaign and policy. And you can reach out to me personally if you ever want to talk. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here before you all. As a small business owner, it's really neat to be before the Beckley-Raleigh Chamber of Commerce. Again, teresaforattorneygeneral.com. Check me out. You won't be disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa Torreseva, Democrat for Attorney General. We appreciate you all being with us this morning. We're going to move over to the Intermediate Court of Appeals. Unfortunately, none of the candidates could be with us, but we want to mention them. There's Elgin Hasita McArdle, running statewide. Also, Michael S. Schultz and S. Ryan White, all three running for the Intermediate Court of Appeals. For the Justice of the Supreme Court of Appeals, Division 1, the candidate is running unopposed. That's Haley Bunn running statewide, and we want to recognize Haley. And then the Justice of the Supreme Court of Appeals, Division 2, again unopposed, Charles S. Trump IV running statewide.
Jay, we need to make a couple of announcements. I think Michelle wants you to over here.
All right.
So I'm going to do a commercial break. Thank you. Let's give Jay an appreciation round of applause. Doesn't he do a great job? He's very good at making adjustments as we need to. Again, I'm Karen Ewing. I'm the chairperson of the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce for the 2024 calendar year. And we just want to, again, thank everybody for being here this morning. This is a really important day. This is an important election year, and the purpose of this session is to be informative. We want to be informed voters, and we want to get as many people out to the polls as we can. So we appreciate you being here. For all of the candidates that have spoken so far and those who are in the wings getting ready to do their thing, we appreciate you being here so very much. So thank you for the local, statewide, national, all the races. We want to thank our sponsors again, the Cabins at Pine Haven, Appalachian Power. This afternoon we are going to have a great session that Dr. Ramon Stewart from WVU Tech will be presenting for us. And we also have, in addition to the next section of candidates for House of Delegates, this afternoon at about 4:25, we have our gubernatorial candidates that are going to be here. And it's a true honor that they have chosen to come to Southern West Virginia. So we would like to fill more seats, and we're asking you for your help between now and then on our breaks. Get the word out. We want as many people to be here really for the whole day, but if they haven't been here yet, help us fill some more seats this afternoon. I believe we're ready to continue. So thank you again, Jay, thanks for being so flexible. And again, thank you to everyone that's here already, and help us fill the auditorium for later today, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Karen Ewing, PCB Bank. Thank you. Moving along here to the state Senate race. Unfortunately, none of the candidates could be with us, and that is Senatorial District 9, by the way. Christy Cardwell, Democrat, and Brian Helton, Republican, both not able to be with us today. So now we want to move down to the House of Delegates, and we see several that are here with us today, which is good. This is the same format again. 30-second opening statement, 2 questions, 60-second or 1-minute closing statement. And I want to mention all the candidates, and then we'll begin. Jordan Allen Maynor, Republican, running for District 41. Anna White for RCO, Democrat, District 41. Adam Gibson, Democrat, District 42. Brandon Steele, Republican, District 42. Christopher Toney, Republican, District 43. Tony O. Martin, Democrat, District 44. Carl Bill Roop, Republican, Delegate, District 42, and Eric Brooks, Republican Delegate, District 45. And we're going to begin first with Chris Toney. Good morning, Chris. If you could just open with a 30-second opening statement.
Good morning. Thank you all for this wonderful opportunity and everything you all do to present this. This is a wonderful opportunity. Currently, I represent the 43rd District, which is a portion of Raleigh and Wyoming County. So I've been elected since 2018. Things I focused on and still trying to do is add cell phone towers in my district. Most of my district is underserved with cell phones. We don't have coverage. I don't even at my house, so even on my bus run when I drive, there's no cell phone service through there. So we're trying to work on that to make sure that I'm able to bring cell phone coverage to that area. It's a thing we have to work with the federal government to make sure they're able to find a cell phone provider that's willing to come to our area. So that's the thing we're currently working on, trying to bring jobs to the area. You know, we have an opportunity to make sure that we have jobs going up north. We need to bring them down south. Some things we need to work on is having site-ready positions, make sure people's ready to come in, have businesses to go out and recruit and come in, and also help our small businesses that are currently here. Most of my district are small business owners, coal miners, and educators. That's what represents most of my district. So I will continue to fight for those individuals, making sure that we have opportunities for them.
Thank you, Chris. We have a couple of questions for you now. First question is from Micah Leith of WOAY-TV.
Thank you for being here. Governor Justice has expressed frustration with this year's legislative session, particularly in regards to work done on the budget. Can you address any concerns that the legislature spent too much time on social issue bills that didn't end up going anywhere and not on issues like the budget? Thank you.
I think that what we did was we spent most of our time dealing with issues that was important to our areas. We represent our districts. So we have an issue with the House and Senate, making sure that we have bills that come across that we agree on, but there's other bills that we need to focus on that helps just our districts, and we try to get 51 votes to make sure that's possible. Now, the budget itself, we spent an amount of time on the budget to making sure we had things to accomplish, but we have to agree on the Senate as well as the House. We have to rectify our budgets, and right now we're also waiting on money that we may have to pay back to the State Department, so we weren't able to do that at the time. We spent the appropriate amount of time making sure we have issues that deal with our area, and I believe that on this issue we did correctly by making sure we focus on our areas that we represent.
Thank you.
Your final question, Mr. Tony, from Cameron Goodo of the Loop Press.
Good morning.
As a member of the House of Delegates, you represent entire communities through your vote. How do you ensure you're sufficiently informed with regard to the will of your constituents so that you can effectively represent them in the House?
So what I do currently is, like when we're off now or we're getting ready to go to interims, is make sure to go out and talk to individuals, making sure we have a process if there's something comes up, and also make sure I post everything on Facebook. Even when we're in the House, I make sure to post our bills up there that we're going through the session that day to try to get comments from individuals in my area, making sure that we're drilling down to things that really help us in our own area, because where I live, most of my area that I hear from is cell phone coverage and bringing jobs. So I just want to focus on that, making sure that we have that opportunity from those individuals and bringing back opportunities. Right now we have a lot of students and everything leaving our part of the county, going up north or going out of the state. We want to correct that and bring them back here by listening to what they need and focusing on the jobs and stuff that we need to bring here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tony. If you'll hang on a minute, we'll call you back in just a moment for a 1-minute closing statement. Up next, Tony O. Martin, who is running in District 44. If you'll come up to the podium and do a 30-second opening statement.
Good morning, everyone. First off, I want to start by saying thank you to the Chamber for putting on this event. Technically, I don't need to be here. I've already won the primary, but I'm here because this is important. I believe in connecting with the citizens of our area to really find out how we can deal with the solutions that we all face here every single day. How can we improve our quality of life so we can get to that point of attracting the jobs that most politicians tell you about? So I could tell you about me being a business owner, lifetime resident of Beckley, volunteer firefighter. You put all that together, it won't get you a mocha frappe from McDonald's. But what I've told every resident of this city, and I spent 13 years going door to door asking this simple question: what matters to you? Electing me by itself won't change it. But if you stand with me, together we can. And that's been my promise over 13 years. Stand with me, and I'll stand with you, I promise. I am Tony O. Thanks.
We have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Martin. First, Keith Thompson from WJLS, question number 1.
Good morning, Tony. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Mr. Thompson?
I'm doing well, sir. Recently, AWP announced that they were shutting down all of their facilities in West Virginia, including the one here in Beckley, also over at Princeton and Smoot, places like that. We don't have that many industrial-type jobs around here, unfortunately. If elected to this office, what will you do to work that situation for Raleigh County?
Well, as I've said before, and as a business owner, I don't think it's government's job to create jobs. It's government's job to create that environment that attracts jobs. And right now in southern West Virginia, not only are we exporting our youth, but with the recent tax cuts, we're exporting our tax dollars to million-dollar corporations in other states. I think we need to focus on what government was established to do. That's our infrastructure. That's when we look at our children, that's our education system. That's our medical and healthcare system. These are the things that we do that improve quality of life. As a business owner, I'm going to open a business where people are, not where people are leaving. And what we have to do right now is we have to make Southern West Virginia not just a place to come play. It's got to be a place that we are proud to live. And that's when we begin focusing on that. And that's why I'm running for office, so that we can focus on the important things that our government needs to focus on. And that goes back to those quality of life issues I just mentioned.
A final question for you from Damon Kane of the Register Herald.
Welcome, Tony. The legislature seems particularly incapable of doing anything to address the child care crisis in the state. While they argue that child care accessibility is not the responsibility of the government, but of companies, and yet do not encourage businesses to offer child care for their employees. What ideas do you have that would put parents in a place where they could re-enter the workforce?
Well, again, we're talking about another quality of life issue, right? And here in Southern West Virginia, I think what our government has been missing for the last several years is healthy debate. We don't have that right now. We don't have two sides coming together for healthy debate. But at the end of the day, I think it goes beyond child care, what we need to look at as a state. Our state is a major employer here in West Virginia. And the reason I say beyond child care is because we also have a crisis with our correctional officers. We have a crisis with our school teachers. We have a crisis with our social workers. And that's because across every one of those fields, our educators, every one of those fields that I've mentioned, our people are underpaid. So the question that I often ponder in my mind is, how can we, as West Virginia, expect private business to come to our state, pay our citizens a livable and comparable wage to the same professions that are in the states that surround us, if our own state doesn't value our educators, our people enough to pay them a fair wage? So it goes to what I just mentioned before, and in the short version, taking care of hope, taking care of our people, doing what matters, and what the people of District 44 in Southern West Virginia has told me matters most to them.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you. We'll have you back in just a moment for a 60-second closing statement. We want to invite Carl Bill Roop up. He's the Republican running in District 44. And if you'll do a 30-second opening statement, Mr. Roop.
First of all, I want to thank Jay and the Chamber on this opportunity to come and speak to you and other citizens throughout Raleigh County. I think this is a very important time for our district, for our state. As the state continues to move forward with surpluses, we also need to look at the individuals. And as I have thought, and the reason I'm running is to live, work, and retire here in this district and in this area. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So I have a passion for this area. I've lived here all my life, and I've walked the streets of Beckley, and I've walked them at night. Things that I see have changed from my childhood. The storefronts from downtown that are empty. How do we put people back in there? How do we bring people from Harper Road to downtown Beckley to shop, to eat, to spend the day? Those are things we need to look at, among many others.
We have a couple of questions for you, beginning first with Lola Reiser of WWNR.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you again. Recently, in conversations over the budget, I don't know if you are are aware, but there was an $11 million cut from the waiver program. Now, that program serves persons with disabilities, support services, and helps support those families. That had 3-to-1 matching federal funds. Why do you think that they would target that particular program for a budget cut?
I think you have to look at the overall budget. I wasn't there.
Of course.
I was there with the discussion, so I can't really tell you what they were thinking. I think that's a very important program, and I think if elected that we need to revisit that. We need to look at how we're getting, I'm all for matching funds. Federal matching funds are fantastic. It's free money for us. But we've got to look at what are we getting our biggest bang for buck for. But I think that's something that we definitely need to revisit in the coming years.
Thank you.
We have another question for you from Ben Schwartz of WVVA.
Hello. Governor Jim Justice recently vetoed a bill approved by the legislature that would have loosened vaccine requirements for students in West Virginia. Do you believe that was the correct or incorrect move by the governor?
The vaccine bill has really been debated and debated here. I have clients that are unvaccinated that wanted to play sports and they were not allowed. So I think that's a very important topic. I think it's something that we need to look at. The House substantially passed that bill, allowing students, parochial schools, private schools, to be unvaccinated and attend school. So I think it's something that we need to look at. I think it's something that we need to consider again next year. And of course, the governor had his reasons. What he said was medical, that he received medical reports that said, please veto that. Again, I wasn't there to hear his reasoning and find out, but I think you got to look at the total situation. And just to say one more thing to Damon, he spoke and had a question that I'd like to answer later on. So I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roop. We'll call you back in just a moment for a closing statement. Up next, Eric Brooks, who is from District 45, Republican. We'd like to have a 30-second opening statement.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. My name is Eric Brooks. I'm a proud son of West Virginia, and particularly southern West Virginia. I was born right here in Raleigh County. I was raised next door over in Wyoming County in the coal fields. My dad was a coal miner, my mom an educator. I worked nearly 27 years here in Raleigh County at the federal prison. That's my background. I never thought I was going to get into politics, but the opportunity presented itself, and here we are. I've served the last 2 years as your delegate for the 45th District, which is the southern district, or the southern part of Fayette County and the northeast part of Raleigh County. My wife and I will celebrate 30 years of wedded bliss this year. We have 3 grown children, and most importantly, I have a brand new grandson that I'm very proud about. And if you'd see me afterwards, I'll show you some pictures. Again, I do want to thank the Chamber for putting this on and giving us an opportunity to get out here and to speak and to be seen and to meet folks and really hear what the concerns of the local citizens have, so that we can take to Charleston and advocate for and fight for to make our state the best state that we can possibly make it. And I'm ready for the questions.
Our first question's from Rivers Upchurch of 59 News.
Good morning.
Good morning.
One of the most controversial bills in this year's General Assembly was about libraries and whether librarians in schools and public libraries could be prosecuted if a child got their hands on a book that parents or judges decided was inappropriate. What is your stance on that bill, and do you think that's something that should be moved forward in the legislature in terms of prosecuting librarians if a child gets their hand on a book that parents don't find acceptable?
Certainly. So the important part of the whole bill, it gets overlooked so many times, was something had to be willfully and intentionally done. It wasn't accidentally this child got a hold of this book or something along those lines. It was something that had to be proven to be intentional. That's part of the code now, and that was going to be part of the code of the new legislation. I absolutely supported that legislation. I think it's important that we protect our children from being exposed to sexually explicit material. I was presented with some material that was from one of our middle school libraries that would make any man blush to see. And to be a father of 3 and now a grandfather of 1, I don't want my children being exposed to that at such an early age. And that was the issue that was being addressed by that bill, and I wholeheartedly supported that bill. But what gets lost in the translation a lot of times was some of the specifics relating to that bill where the idea was we're going to throw librarians in jail for checking out a book to a kid. That was absolutely not the case. There were safeguards and multiple safeguards in that bill to make sure that was not the case. This was for somebody that intentionally and deliberately give pornographic material to underage children. And as what was said in one of the presentations I was in, it's illegal to do it in the parking lot. It needs to be illegal to do inside the building.
Thank you.
Your final question, Mr. Brooks, comes from Micah Leath of WOAY-TV.
You supported a bill this session that would have ended the pre-conviction circulation of mug shots. How did your time in the criminal justice system inform your decision to vote for that bill?
Thank you so much. Yes, another one of the kind of the bills that went sideways somehow. I believe in civil liberty. I'm a constitutional conservative, and I do believe in the you are innocent until proven guilty mentality, and that's obviously constitutionally. We have due process laws. I do have a background in corrections. That's what I did. That's what I know best. And it's important for me to take the forefront on this issue because of my background. We had safeguards again, if the bill in totality, if you look at it, safeguards for public safety. Public safety was never going to be jeopardized by this bill. If the corrections department felt that it was in the need of public safety to put out the mugshot would absolutely be released. It was more permissive than restrictive in that manner. This was just for folks that have nonviolent crimes that they're accused of. You haven't been convicted of anything when you take that mugshot, and for most cases, there's no real benefit to society to see that mugshot. It is prejudicial, in my opinion, for those that's going to be going to court and having a jury that would be seated to judge them. They already have this in their mind, whether it's subliminally or intentionally, of someone in a jumpsuit that is, in my opinion, very prejudicial when it comes to the legal system.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. We want to remind our radio listening audience that you're listening to Meet the Candidates on Future Forward on WWNR Beckley and WJLS Beckley. We now want to get closing statements. A 1-minute closing statement. Up first, Delegate Christopher Toney from District 43.
Thank you again. I just want to thank the Chamber for putting this on and getting an opportunity for all of us to come up here and speak, and making sure we're getting our voices out and people know who we are. Again, I'm from the 43rd District. I've been there since 2018. I'm a school bus operator, so I travel most of the roads in Raleigh County that I represent and a portion of Wyoming County. The things we have to do in the legislature is making sure that we're representing our community, making sure that we're bringing things back to our areas, and making sure that we're working for those people. When I hear from those individuals that live in my district, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can for them, and making sure we're moving West Virginia forward, making sure we're bringing opportunities to our area, making sure we're helping the small business owners, making sure we're bringing jobs and bringing opportunity for children to learn our education system, making sure that our vocational centers are up and running, making sure we have opportunities there to bring educators in, especially with our vocational schools. It's a dying breed right now. You pay sometimes $90 an hour to get a plumber. And we need to make sure the students understand that it's okay to go to trade school. It's okay to have a trade. Making sure, I wish in my opportunity when I went to high school, I could have had a trade and then went to college, but that wasn't presented. It was you go to college track or you go to trade. We should be able to do both. That's an opportunity for our students to earn a trade while they're in high school, and then while they're going through college, if they're unable to get a full ride, they're able to work as that trade and making sure they're moving forward. So that's my opportunity. I'll make sure that I make for our students, making sure that we're moving them, making sure they have opportunities here in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher Toney, Republican for District 43. Mr. Tony Martin, a 1-minute closing statement, please.
Again, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. And, here's what it boils down to. The theme here is future forward. If we really want to move forward, and my district encompasses Beckley. District 44 is essentially Beckley. And I listened to the city candidates here yesterday, and there were a lot of talk about how come downtown Beckley can't be like downtown Lewisburg, downtown Fayetteville. And I often tell people it's because those cities, their identity is reflected in their downtowns. That's why it's so important for me to connect with citizens, because we got to bring that identity out. That's what we need to showcase to the world. I often say, what makes Beckley in southern West Virginia great is its people, you and me. I'm just like you. I own a business in downtown Beckley because I want downtown Beckley to be that downtown. You know, and it's only one way we can do that. That's together. That's the only way we can show our identity. And that's the only way, if you send me to Charleston, that we can really make a difference in improving the lives of our citizens, improving our quality of life, and attracting those businesses that we're talking about right now. That's how we do it. Stand with me, I'll stand with you. I promise. I am Tony O. Martin. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Tony O. Martin, Democratic candidate for House of Delegates, District 44. Next up, 60-second closing statement from Carl Bill Roop, who's Republican running in District 44.
Thank you. And again, it's a great opportunity to be here, to have this opportunity. And Damon, you said something about child care. I think the last two sessions of the House that originally they passed a bill that would allow child care, and you got 100% if the facility was on the property of the business. Last year then, they amended that and they let the facility be outside of the property. But I still think we've got a ways to go on that. So I just wanted you to know the House is moving in the right direction. And I think we need to be moving in the right direction. Like I just said, what an opportunity to, you have great ideas for the city of Beckley, but you know what? You got to have a seat at the table. And I believe I would have that seat at the table in Charleston. Not only do you have a seat, but you got to be able to convince the other delegates that you have a good idea. And you have a good idea for Beckley and southern West Virginia. We need to improve our education. We need more economic development. And we need safer streets in downtown Beckley. And how do we do that? That's what I think being a part of this community is. I've been there over 30 years in downtown Beckley, whether it be 6 years with the West Virginia National Guard, whether it be coaching AAU teams, coaching Little League teams. I have been involved in this area, and I would like to continue to be involved. Thank you.
Carl Bill Roop, Republican candidate for District 44 for the West Virginia House of Delegates. And now we want to invite Eric Brooks from District 45 for your closing statement. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. It is great being here this morning. I'm a conservative. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm very active in our party here locally. And I try to take the conservative principles to Charleston with me. Again, like I said earlier, I never thought I'd be in the political arena, but here we are, and here I am. I can be accused of a lot of things, but I cannot be accused of not loving my state and loving my people in my district. I try to represent them the best that I can. They have my phone number, my personal phone number I give to my people. They can call me anytime, day or night, and I want to hear what they have to say and try to address the issues that they face. Something as minor as potholes and road situations in front of their home, to large things like child care, like bringing businesses to our area where we can keep our children here in Raleigh County and Fayette County in southern West Virginia, instead of what has been traditionally an exodus to points south and even points north of our youth going to find work in other places. I'm down there to fight for West Virginia. I'm down there particularly to fight for southern West Virginia, and to let those folks know, as I often tell them, behind closed doors, there's a lot of land south of Charleston, and that we have a lot of people down here that need to be represented and helped as well. So thank you for your time, for allowing us to be here. I will be back, I think, over here at the table I just love to meet everybody. Just come by and say hi. And thank you again for having this wonderful event.
Thank you. Let's give all of our House of Delegates candidates a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you all for being with us. This concludes our portion of this Meet the Candidates Forum this morning. We're going to be back today at about 4:20 for a Meet the Candidates Gubernatorial Forum. We want to invite you back for that. We also want to thank Appalachian Power, our sponsor, and thank you all for being with us.
As you break, we are getting ready to take a networking break. I was asked to let everyone know that Mr. Paul Chapman, he's going to wave his arm. He has voter registration cards. If you need to make any changes to your voter registration status, he has them at the back of the room, so feel free to go there. But I want to thank Jay, our moderator. I want to thank our governmental affairs chairperson with the chamber, Ms. Heather Ouimet, and our media panel, our sponsors, and all of the candidates. Also want to thank Appalachian Power for sponsoring this morning's Meet the Candidates.